Hello and welcome back to our OptiFast lifestyle education series. Today we're going to be talking about knowing your nutrients, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the different types of macronutrients, which are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. A lot of times I get patients asking me, Dr. Villavicencio, how much protein should I have in my diet? So just kind of to let you know, this video is going to be giving some generalizations. Please ask me about individual recommendations because the amounts are going to depend on your kidney function, how much weightlifting you're doing, for example, or if your body's in a state of healing or repair. Like, for example, if you've got if you're ill or sick, or if you've got a foot ulcer or something like that, you know, those are some things that will change the amount of proteins and things like that that you want in your diet. But in general, protein is from the 2015 American Dietary Guidelines, it should be between 10 to 30% of your total calories should be coming from protein. And proteins are foods that are found in foods like meats, eggs, nuts, things like that, and they are really essential for us in our diet because they help to contribute the components in our body that make up our muscles. They also help to contribute to a good and healthy immune system, and help to make up the components that are necessary to make the hormones and enzymes necessary for us to live. So if you don't already have this handout from me already, I use it a lot in clinic, but on the top left area of the inside fold is an area that talks about meats and proteins, and it's got a whole bunch of different choices. These are things that are not going to raise your blood sugars a whole lot, and basically give you a lot of different choices of different proteins. As far as carbohydrates, that's the major energy source for our body in the form of glucose. It's stored as long chains of glucose called glycogen in the liver. And most people are going to need somewhere around 130 grams of carbohydrates in their diet per day. But again, ask me because, you know, we will be using different amounts of carbohydrates depending on your particular need. Essentially, carbohydrates are going to be broken down. I like to think of them as either complex carbohydrates or simple carbohydrates. Sometimes people talk about them as complex or refined, and with that, what we're talking about is basically how simple a sugar is for our body to break down and to absorb it into the bloodstream. We can measure that by something called the glycemic index. In general, foods with a low glycemic index are going to be healthier for us because they're more complex, they have more fiber in them, and if you look up the glycemic index on Google or online, you want to stick to carbohydrates in general that have a glycemic index of around 45 or lower. The ones with much higher glycemic index are going to be real refined sugars, and they are going to tend to spike your blood sugar and raise insulin levels a lot more. And so those ones you want to just eat really sparingly. So kind of some examples of complex carbohydrates are going to be like starchy vegetables, like cauliflower, sweet potato, things like that, whole grain breads like Ezekiel bread, and then simple carbohydrates are going to be things like honey, some real sweet fruits like watermelon, things like that, and then, you know, obviously like sodas and those kinds of things we want to keep to a minimum. The last group on our macronutrients are the fats, and in general we want to keep the fats low. We do need fats in our diet. I mean, they are essential for our body in order to make hormones that we need, in order also for us to be able to absorb fat soluble vitamins like vitamin D, E, A, and K. But we don't need a whole lot of them. So in general, we want to keep them, you know, around 30 grams of fat or less per day, or sorry, 30% of our total calories or less per day. Now, fats are also important to kind of stratify as far as which fats are healthier and which fats are less healthy, kind of like we do with the carbohydrates, with the complex versus the simple carbohydrates. With the fats, we're talking about how if they're saturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, or monounsaturated fats. So in general, saturated fats are the ones that are the worst for us. If you look at a food label and you see the amount of saturated fat in it, you want to, and that's going to show up on a food label like you see here, you want to keep the saturated fat as low as possible. That's going to be foods that are fats that are solid at room temperature. So if you can think about like bacon, you know, after you cook your bacon, once you let it cool down to room temperature, the fat or the lard of the bacon tends to solidify. That's how you know that this is a saturated fat and it's not healthy for you. Other types of fats that are saturated fat besides bacon are going to be like cream cheese, butter, sour cream, things like that. So although they're very tasty, you want to try to keep those at a bare minimum. The other thing about fats is that per gram of the nutrient, fats are the most calorie dense. There's approximately 9 calories per gram of fat, whereas compared to protein, there's about 4 calories per gram of protein. So you can, if you think of it that way, you can kind of eat twice as much protein compared to fat and still have the same amount of calories. So a lot of times people will eat just a small amount of food with fats and they don't feel full because it's not a whole lot of volume, but they're getting a lot of calories because fats are very calorie dense foods. So that's kind of a tricky thing too. So another reason to avoid them if we can. So again, saturated fats, we want to avoid those first and foremost. The unsaturated fats or monounsaturated fats are going to be the ones that are those healthy fats. Those actually help to protect us from heart disease because they help to lower the LDL cholesterol. When LDL cholesterol is whenever we get your cholesterol panel, it's usually broken down into total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, which we call the bad cholesterol that kind of predisposes us to heart attacks and strokes, HDL cholesterol, which is our good cholesterol, and our triglycerides. So the monounsaturated fats are the ones that are going to help to lower the bad cholesterol and help to protect us from heart attacks and strokes. And so those are going to be fats like avocados, certain nuts like almonds, cashews, pistachios, those types of things, olive oil and olives. Now again, we don't want to eat too much because they contain a lot of calories, because they still have that 9 calories per gram, but they are healthier amongst the fat group, the types of fats. Then the last group are polyunsaturated fats, which are going to be things like margarine, walnuts are in that group, corn oil, soybeans, that sort of thing. So those are kind of in the middle. Some of them help to lower LDL cholesterol. So saturated fats are the worst, monounsaturated fats are the best, and then polyunsaturated fats are kind of in the middle. With the monounsaturated and the polyunsaturated fats, those are going to be fats that are going to be either liquid or soft at room temperature. Finally, omega-3 fatty acids. These are actually pretty good for us too. In certain quantities, they can help to lower triglycerides, which is a good thing because that can help reduce the risk of blood clots and inflammation. And you'll find a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in things like flaxseed, and a lot of the fish like salmon, mackerel, tuna, herring, that sort of thing. So unless there's a reason why you cannot eat fish or should not be eating fish, it's in general kind of a good idea to have it a couple times a week. Last, I want to talk about water. And this is not a macronutrient. It contains 0 calories, but it's very, very important for us to be making sure that we're getting plenty of water in our diet. You know, 60 to 70% of our bodies are composed of water, and So we need to make sure that we're replenishing that. It helps to lubricate the joints, helps regulate body temperature, and helps to flush out waste products. So very important to be getting enough water. In general, women, we want you guys to have at least 9 cups of water per day, and men about 13 cups of water per day. So make sure that you're getting plenty of fluids. You know, as far as, you know, variety of foods in our diet, you know, there's a lot of different essential vitamins and minerals that come from a lot of different foods. So whenever we do start reintroducing, or if you've already started reintroducing grocery store bought foods and, you know, home prepared meals at home, it's really important to kind of have a variety, because that way that you'll make sure that you'll be getting all of the different essential vitamins and minerals that come from different types of foods. So in general, I've shown you this before. You know, your plate, you want it to be, you know, half full of non-starchy vegetables. These are what I kind of consider to be for people to be like free foods, because they're very low in calories, and they're high in fiber, and they contain a lot of the essential vitamins that we need for our diet. About a quarter of it being a lean meat or protein, and then just a quarter, because you want to limit how much starch or grains that you're having, plus a serving of fruit and a serving of dairy, to make sure that you're getting plenty of the vitamins and minerals that you need. Again, you know, this will be individualized to you, so portions may be small, but if you have that variety where you're getting a little bit of protein, plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables, and then just a little bit of the starch or grain, that will you know, sustain you and give you enough energy for your requirements. So with that, take your food journal or your OptiFast journal, and I want you to go ahead and record 5 protein foods that you enjoy, and that you plan to include in your kind of week-to-week meal plan. Because also the other important thing that I didn't mention earlier about protein, which is an important point, is that protein does help to sustain you and kind of keep you full. It also helps to kind of stabilize blood sugars. So I always encourage people to have a little bit of protein, or at least some sort of serving of protein at each meal. That way you don't, you know, it'll kind of stabilize blood sugars. You won't have kind of this yo-yo of up and down of the sugars, and also kind of help keep you full from meal to meal, so that you don't, you're not getting hungry in between and feeling like you need to grab a snack. And then I want you to also be tracking how much water intake that you're having, so that you can make sure that you're getting enough water, because sometimes that's another thing that that can spur people to want to eat, is if they're, you know, they're actually thirsty. So then they'll grab a snack or something like that. But, you know, instead, if you can just make sure that you're getting plenty of fluids, that will also help to kind of fill you up and sustain you from meal to meal. So, all right, well, thank you so much, and I hope that you gained a few pearls on this talk, and I will see you again in a week or two. All right, bye.